For most people, wealth shows up briefly, then disappears. 2 days after payday, the account looks healthy. 3 weeks later, the anxiety is back. That cycle isn't accidental, it's engineered. And if you don't control what happens in the first 24 hours after your paycheck hits, you'll spend your entire life stuck inside it. I'm Kyle, and after analyzing more bank statements than I can count, I can tell you this with certainty. The issue isn't how much you earn, it's that your money has no defensive perimeter. You call it treating yourself, but what you're really doing is rehearsing the same financial ending over and over again. Today, I'm going to break down the payday paradox and give you the exact 24-hour structure high-level operators use to make sure their money never leaks back into the system. This is the moment where your account stops behaving like a revolving door and starts functioning like a vault. Here's what's actually happening in your head. Your brain is optimized for short-term reward, not long-term freedom. In an evolutionary sense, that made sense. In a digital economy, it's catastrophic. The data is brutal. Most people burn through over half of their discretionary income within the first 72 hours of being paid. That isn't poor discipline, it's predictable biology left unmanaged. You feel responsible because the bills are covered, but all you've done is maintain the cage. The losing formula is always the same. Spend first, save whatever survives. The winning formula flips it completely. Secure the future first, then live inside what's left. Every dollar spent impulsively isn't just gone, it's a future asset you executed before it had a chance to work. Your balance isn't permission to spend, it's ammunition, and right now, you're firing it blindly. Watch how financial collapse actually forms. Lifestyle expands, income follows, stress never leaves. That's why a surgeon earning $500,000 can feel just as trapped as someone earning $50,000. Same disease, different scale. The moment the direct deposit lands, emotion hijacks logic. You tell yourself you've earned a reward. But ask the harder question. Do you want a temporary upgrade or permanent relief? Poor thinking treats payday as an exit, a chance to get rid of money. Wealthy thinking treats payday as an entry point, a chance to acquire assets that multiply. If that distinction doesn't click, nothing else will. Because at that point, you're not underpaid, you're understructured. You are converting hours of your life into money and then immediately returning it to the system that sold you the illusion in the first place. That loop ends only when your future self becomes more important than your present impulse. This is where the owner's framework comes in. Owners don't ask what something costs, they ask what it displaces. Principle 1 is non-negotiable. Pay yourself first is not advice, it's physics. If your investments aren't automated to move the second income arrives, the money is already compromised. Principle 2 is the 24-hour cooling rule. No non-essential purchases during the emotional window after payday. That confidence you feel is artificial, inflated by liquidity. Before structure, your finances are a leaking bucket. After structure, they become a dam. Flow is controlled. Power is generated. Direction is intentional. The same $100 bill means two entirely different futures depending on who's holding it. One person sees dinner. Another sees leverage. The difference isn't income, it's governance. You are the CEO of your financial life, and right now, your board is not impressed. Look closely at how serious money actually moves. When high-level investors get paid, nothing visible happens. No upgrades, no announcements, no dopamine purchases. Capital goes straight to work, quietly. $1,000 invested at 10% isn't just next year's gain, it's the base layer of a compounding structure. Compare two paths repeated over time. One person upgrades a phone, the other upgrades their asset base. 5 years later, one has clutter, the other has security. Stretch that behavior across a decade and the gap becomes permanent. Real wealth grows in places no one claps for. It compounds while you sleep. It benefits from taxes being minimized, not flaunted. And it demands that you think in years, not weekends. Every dollar is an employee. The only question is whose empire it's building. That decision is made immediately within the first 24 hours. Be deliberate, or the world will gladly decide for you. Everything that matters happens immediately after the deposit lands. That window is where control is either established or lost. The 24-hour blitz starts with one non-negotiable rule. The sweep happens first. At least 20%, preferably more, must leave your checking account automatically the moment income arrives. No delay. No manual action, no temptation. If you rely on willpower, you've already failed, because willpower is weakest when liquidity feels high. Next comes the elimination phase. Any debt charging more than 7% interest is not normal, it's an emergency. Carrying high-interest balances while spending on convenience is financial self-sabotage. Extinguish those balances aggressively, the same way you would handle an actual fire. Then comes the buffer test. Your checking account should only hold what's required for fixed obligations plus a small margin. Anything extra is excess friction waiting to turn into impulse spending. When your visible balance looks lean, behavior follows. This artificial scarcity is intentional. The war for your money isn't fought over a month, it's decided before lunch on payday. Structure beats intention every time. That's where the bucket system comes in. All cash flow must be divided into 3 roles. Foundation covers survival housing, utilities, basic food, and should never exceed 50% of take-home pay. Growth is non-negotiable. It funds investments, debt elimination, and skill acquisition, and should claim at least 20%. Fuel is everything else. Dining, entertainment, hobbies, that gets what remains. When people feel stuck, it's rarely because income is too low, it's because fuel quietly cannibalizes growth. The fix is constraint, not motivation. Use separate accounts. Fund the fuel account once on payday, and let it run dry when it runs dry. No refills, no exceptions. This forces prioritization. You stop spending on noise and start spending on what actually improves your life. This isn't punishment, it's optimization. Wealth grows where boundaries exist. Expect resistance, especially from your ego. The first 24 hours after payday trigger a powerful urge to signal success. New clothes, better meals, subtle flexes. That urge isn't yours, it's implanted. The system profits when you confuse visibility with progress. Another common failure is the small win reward. You had a productive week, so you spend big to celebrate. That neutralizes momentum instantly. Replace that pattern. Celebrate progress by strengthening the system, buy knowledge, fund an account, increase automation. Train your brain to associate satisfaction with ownership, not consumption. Consumers get dopamine from buying. Capitalists get dopamine from watching assets grow. Once you start tracking net worth instead of checking balance, payday stops being emotional and starts being strategic. That shift alone changes behavior permanently. Discipline is easiest when the rules are already written. That's why the next 90 days must be scripted. Month 1 is lockdown. Automation goes live. Bills are paid. No discretionary spending in the first 48 hours. Subscriptions are audited and eliminated. Month 2 is the debt strike. Every dollar uncovered in month 1 attacks the smallest balance until it's gone. Momentum builds when accounts hit 0. Month 3 is engine construction. You open or expand an investment account and increase contributions by at least 5%. By the end of this period, behavior becomes reflexive. Money arrives, the system activates, and wealth compounds without debate. Over time, your investments will generate more value in those first 24 hours than your paycheck itself. That's the tipping point. It begins with one disciplined Friday. Most people don't fail from lack of knowledge, they fail from predictable errors. The most common? Treating payday like permission to splurge. Paying bills manually instead of automating them, leaving extra money visible in checking accounts, shopping while liquidity is high, ignoring the true cost of purchases and hours of life exchanged, never reviewing net worth. And the biggest lie of all, I'll start next month. These mistakes are easy, comfortable, and socially encouraged. They are also expensive. Correcting them doesn't require genius, just 5 minutes of setup and the willingness to remove temptation from your environment. Delete the apps. Set the transfers. Let structure do what motivation never could. Here's the reality. Wealth is the distance between your income and your ego, and that distance is decided in the first day after you get paid. You now have the framework, the sequence, and the system. What remains is execution. On your next payday, sit with the discomfort of not spending. Watch your growth bucket expand while everything else stays quiet. That calm you feel? That's control. Tell me in the comments what you're automating: first savings, debt, or investing. Because the moment money moves without asking for permission, you stop reacting and start directing. Don't wait for another cycle to prove the same point. This one decision changes the trajectory. The fortress is built one disciplined payday at a time,